you joined the Army, and what year did you join?
In March of '43. I tried to get in the Navy when I got out of high school, 17 years old in Duluth, Minnesota, Denfeld. I tried to get in the Navy, but I'm colorblind. And they gave you the test yourself. So I found out I was colorblind. And I thought, well, I'll go and get on the ore boats. This is in '42. And get a fireman's license. And then come back, and then the Navy will take me as a fireman. Same test. So then like I say, I went to school. This NYA had a deal in Duluth with machinist training, and we volunteered. And then a couple of months later, we went to Fort Snelling. But I had been in that school for those couple of months.
Now, you joined the Army when you were in Duluth, then?
Yes.
And you went to Fort Snelling for processing?
Yes.
And then where'd you go to basic training?
Camp Toccoa, Georgia.
At what point did you get into the Airborne?
What month?
When did you sign up for the Airborne?
Yes, I signed up for the Airborne when we were at Fort Snelling. That's the three of us that signed up for it. But I was the only one to pass the certain tests that they used. And that,
so your two buddies didn't go with you?
No, they went someplace else.
In the Army or another branch?
They were in the Army, but
Okay.
they didn't pass the test to get into the Airborne. That was, I didn't know this until later, but Lieutenant General Jimmy Johnson, who was commanding the 82nd in the Gulf War, and our General Dick Seitz were at a reunion in Reno, Nevada, an airborne reunion. And this Jimmy Johnson said that at that time, you had to have an IQ of 120 or better to get into the Airborne. I didn't know that. So the others, but then physically and.
Okay, now when you finished Airborne training, then where'd you go?
After we finished, when we got back from jump school, we went back to Camp McCall, North Carolina, and we had known eventually then as I mentioned, when we went on maneuvers, that we were going to be going overseas. And we signed a statement. We knew that if anybody went over the hill or anything, it would be a general courts-martial. And so we signed it, and we went back to, after maneuvers, we went back to Camp McCall, and then we went to Newport News, Virginia, and got our ships, and to go to Europe. And we were supposed to go into Anzio, but the conditions were such that they decided it'd be too, apparently, we didn't know at the time, too much more risk, because there wasn't that much to provide any kind of security for us. So we went in south of Naples. We were in Naples, Italy, and then we fought from Naples up to Rome, and went into a rest camp in Rome.
What kind of a camp?
Just a rest camp.
Okay.
Rest area. We had been fighting from south of Naples up to Rome, and Rome was an open city, so there was no fighting in the city of Rome.
Now, what do you mean by open city?
They weren't going to bomb it or anything like that. It was just a free city. That and Paris were the two free cities at that time.
Now, they weren't. Would the Germans bomb it, Rome?
No, there was something how they worked it out, but
So the Germans would not bomb Rome, and the U.S. would not bomb. Allies would not
Rome
bomb.
nor Paris were neither one of the two schools.
I've never heard that before.
No, neither one of them were bombed. They withdrew, and we just went in.
So you called it a free zone?
The free, yeah.
So nobody, no matter which side, would bomb it.
Neither the Allies or the Germans bombed. As far as we know, like I say, it was they termed it at that time like a free or open city.
Okay. Never heard that before.
Well, if you notice that there's been in all of the different things, there was never any incidents of bombing where we bombed Rome or Paris, or the Germans bombed Rome or Paris. Yeah, so it was
So you worked your way up
up to Rome.
Up to Rome, and then what happened?
We went to, well, we were up there, they drew us out, and then we went in on the beach in a town called Civitavecchia. That's where there was a huge cannon that was in Civitavecchia that would fire on Anzio.
Whose cannon, German or ours?
The Germans had this
Oh,
railroad
yeah.
gun.
Big Bertha.
This big railroad gun in
Yep.
Civitavecchia, and they would fire on Anzio. We had what they called, when we were down in that area, they had what they called the Anzio Express. About 4:30 every afternoon, we knew it was coming in. They'd only fire it once a day. It was that big of a gun, you could almost walk down in it.
What were they firing at, you know?
It was more, I think, it was destructive, of course, but it was more for psychological.
Okay.
When you heard, it sounded like a freight train coming in. You could hear it.
Oh, wow.
And so and then we, like I say, we went in and captured that gun. And then we went to Frascati.
Wait a minute, you went back up. Your group had to go in and capture the Anzio, I mean, the big German gun?
We captured the gun in Civitavecchia. The gun that they would fire towards Anzio.
How many troops went to capture it? Any idea?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
All airborne unit?
Our unit, the
Okay.
517th.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, we had a regiment of infantry, a battalion of artillery, and a company of engineers, and we used as like a special forces group that we would go to where the action was. And we were attached to various units, 5th Army, the 2nd, some of the units from Texas, and but they would attach us to those units, we'd fight, and then we'd go to someplace else.
Do you remember the year when you went?
1944. 44.
44?
Yeah.
Okay, after you captured Anzio, Annie, I think it's called, then where'd you go?
Then we went to a place north of there, Frascati, where we were told that we were getting ready for the jump in the invasion of France. And so we went in there, and in August, around the 9th or 10th of August, then we jumped into southern France.
What kind of plane did they put you in?
We used C-47s.
Okay, the old DC-3.
Yeah, the DC-3. There were 17 of us in what they call a stick. And it was real odd when we were loading up. An officer and myself were putting our parachutes on it or things like that. And we didn't know this until we got in the plane. And it was dark. But I noticed that it didn't feel right. And I had his carbine carrier, and he had my M1. And so we had to change in the dark, in the plane, take our chutes off. I had to put I had to give him his carbine, and he had to give me my M1 and put everything back on. And we thought, well, we hope it works. Because you couldn't really see, but that was a little scary to start with.
Now you say, I hope it works, you mean the parachute or the gun?
Well, yeah,
both.
To get it on right, to get it put on right. But after we jumped it, and well, we were in Italy. I don't know if you ever heard of Berlin Sally.
Yes.
There was Tokyo Rose and Berlin Sally, and we had heard that Berlin Sally had come on and said that you men of the 517th are a lot better than what we anticipated, but we'll be waiting for you. And they were. Our drop zone was all wired, drums, emplacements. Our Protestant chaplain broke his leg on the jump, and so the Catholic chaplain was telling us all this thing, that it was just by the grace of God that we missed the drop zone. We missed it by the Air Force missed it by 25 miles. And after we landed, then we had to get back to the area, and we found then that where the Germans had completely got it set up for us to drop into. It would have been like dropping into blowtorch.
How did they know that was gonna be the drop zone?
I don't know.
Yeah, that makes you wonder, doesn't
I
it?
don't know. But they knew exactly where we were supposed to. And the Air Force made a mistake, fortunately for us. They missed it by 25 miles, so when we reconnoitered it, we had to get back to the area. We were given little clickers.
Yes, I remember that.
Maybe you've heard of those.
Yeah, I saw it in the John Wayne movie.
Yeah, and when that night, we jumped at 4:30 in the morning, so it was dark. And if you hear something, you'd give a click, and if someone didn't answer that, you knew it was somebody else in your unit. But then we got back to our drop zone, and we then just fighting and clearing the area, getting ready for these gliders to come in, and we had when we jumped, everybody, all of us had a machine gun belt. Ammo belt. But in addition to our warrant, had a machine gun belt. We had about, I think, 3 pounds of TNT, and our rations and all that stuff. And when I got on the ground to lift mine up over my head, it was gone. It had ripped off. I didn't know it.
What was gone?
My musette bag with all this stuff in it had ripped off, and I didn't really know until I got on the ground to throw it up over my head, and it wasn't there. So there went my shorts and t-shirts and rations and whatever. But anyway, we made through. Then we fought through that. It's above Nice and Marseille, and there was one area it was called Sospel. It was on the border between Italy and France, and it was giving a lot of trouble with. It was in a valley where the Air Force couldn't fly in, and strafe and bomb it. So we had to go in and take that town. They had a metal door, what do you want to call it, where they would open and their gun would come out, fire the gun and put it back in. And we were using 75s at that time, and it was just like shooting a pea shooter at it. It wouldn't do it.
What kind of gun was behind this door?
I'm not sure, but it was.
Okay.
It was more than our 75. They used a lot of 88s. Maybe you've heard of that. The 88s.
On the tanks too, didn't they?
That was the gun at that time. It equaled better than anything that we had at that time.
Did you come up against any 88s then?
Oh yes.
Kind of.
You knew they were fighting at you because you'd hear the boom, zip, boom. It was just 1, 2, 3, and you feel that there was a fighter against you personally. But we had a unit with us called the 442nd. They were an anti-tank unit from Hawaiian Americans, the most decorated unit in the service.
Hawaiian Americans?
They were an anti-tank unit. They'd wait till the tank was almost on them before they'd do fire on them.
Were they Hawaiian or Japanese?
Well, they call them Hawaiian Americans. I suppose they were Japanese too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but we were with them, like I say.
What was their method to take out a tank? What they use?
37s and whatever else they had, anti-tank guns.
Okay.
Yeah, but we learned later on they were the most decorated unit. And going back a little ways, when we were in Italy, we had a group called the Gurkhas with us. Gurkhas. They were from India, and they had white horses. And they were some of the most ferocious fighters that we'd ever run into. But they were called Gurkhas, but they claimed that they could come up behind a German and feel the dog tags, and if they were round, that diminished the party.
Say that again, who's round tanks?
Well, our dog tags were
oval shaped.
Oval was more, what do you call it?
Kind of
Oblong.
Yeah.
And the Germans were more round.
Okay.
And if they feel these round dog tags, they claim that they could get rid of them. we didn't test them, so we don't know. But,
no, okay.
No. But we actually jumped in France, and at one time, they claimed that we had spent the longest period of time in what you'd call combat. We had 120 days without relief, and that was a long time at that time. So
Yeah.
we ran into different units that the Germans are, at that time, some of their best troops, the Panzers and the rest like that, but,
Did you ever end up getting hit yourself then?
pardon?
Did you ever end up getting hit yourself
Twice.
twice?
I was,
Flesh wound or?
I had a machine gun on an outpost when I was in France after we jumped. And I was a machine gunner on an outpost, and we started getting shelling, and they had apparently what they call tree bursts. And I got up to run into my gunner, my assistant gunner myself, in our foxholes, and then I noticed the blood coming out of my boots, and I'd been hit in the leg. And I didn't feel it at the time. And it's ironic, they took me off the mountain then to the aid station, the hospital, and the guy that replaced me on the gun within hours was hit. Because when I came back, I asked for this, where's the Sergeant Corporal so-and-so? They said they had a hit on the gun. So
Lucky. Yeah,
this is why I say, I wonder why I'm here.
yeah.
And then I was in the hospital, and it was real odd. I didn't know, when they took me in, they gave me something, and they told me to stay down because I guess I looked kind of rough. And I got up and I passed out. And I learned later on there was some special group morphine or something that they gave me for, I guess, whatever needed. And I spent some time there, and when I came back again, I went back to my unit, and we were sitting on this one bluff having our rations, and we got shelled, we were getting shelled by mortar shells, and I got hit again. And this time, when we heard it coming, and I just, again, luck. When I fell, I put my arms up over my head, and I got hit in my arm, otherwise I would have got hit in the head. And each time, the shrapnel was in so deep that they didn't, it's still in there. I still have some of my arm and some of my leg. But when I came back that time, they wouldn't let me sit with them. They said I drew fire. But anyway, that we had an incident once. You remember different things, but we were on this bluff. Like I say, I had a machine gun, 30 caliber machine gun, and they had it. In France, they had two units. One was called the French Marquis, which is the underground. They were the top of them, and they had other people called the FFI, the Free French of the Interior, and they liked to show themselves off. And we were on this bluff, and the guy was walking back and forth. And my Lieutenant Starkey told him, "Get down, you're exposing our position here." Didn't pay any attention, kept going. And all he said was, "Hill, yes sir, swing around."
Do what?
Swing around my gun.
Okay.
And the guy kept going, and he said, "Hill, lock and load." And locked and loaded. And then the guy got the message.
And you went away.
I would have fired. He would have ordered me to fire, and I would have had to fire.
Oh,
I never had to.
Yeah.
But that,
You'd given the whole position away for
it was
everybody.
giving away our position, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We had the high point at the time, but they couldn't tell it. So anyway, some of those little things that happened that somehow or other you remember. But, and then we, as time went on, fighting up through France, and we were supposed to spend Christmas in Paris. And we were in, one of us in Soissons and the other was in Reims, France. And by that time we were in they had taken us into the 82nd Airborne, so we were part of the 82nd at that time. And they took the 101st, and our weapons went with the 101st. And they left before we did. They went to Bastogne. In fact, we were told to stay off the Bastogne Houffalize highway because that's where all the action, the Germans were there. So we went in a place called Malmedy, and they gave us new weapons, and I was assistant squad leader, and so I wound up with a Thompson submachine gun, 45 caliber. and had to clean, that was a new weapon, I had never fired it. They had to clean that
Cosmoline?
in my helmet at night in Belgium in the wintertime. Hopefully that I get it disassembled and cleaned and assembled and fired.
You mean you had to clean it every time you
It came
fired it?
it came with Cosmoline.
Oh, okay. So initially you cleaned it.
Initially I had,
Yeah.
like I said, I had cleaned it, my helmet, took it apart and reassembled it. So, we were,
But once you cleaned your Thompson, you didn't have to clean it again, or just once in a while?
well, no, when I fired it, of course, you had to keep it clean, but no, and like I say, eventually I was taken out. But when we were there, when maybe you heard of the Bemidji massacre?
Hey, what do you call it?
Malmedy?
The Bemidji massacre,
How would you know?
that's where the Germans captured our units, or not ours, but one of the units, and machine gunned them. And only a couple of us got out of that to live to tell about it.
Which troops were these? Ours or?
Well, some of them, now, we went there, back up a little bit, when we went into that area around Liège, Malmedy, St. Vith, the 106th Infantry Division was just arriving in Belgium, I think the week before that, from the States. And that's where von Rundstedt hit. And he practically wiped out the division, 13,000 men. You couldn't form a regiment out of the whole division. And we were told to dig in alongside the road, and they would withdraw through us. But don't speak to them, don't say nothing, just let them go. And some of those young kids, they had just been in the States, what, a week or two before that, no combat, nothing. And some were crying just like young kids. But they withdrew through us, and then the next day we went and took the town back. But
Now the Germans took out which group? 105th?
that was 106th Infantry Division
106th?
at that time.
And they
Now,
lost it.
There's
13,000 men got lost?
I have a map that a fellow here.
Yeah, we'll look at it later.
Was there in that area also. He gave it to me, and I got to show it to you. But the different divisions were originally in Belgium before von Rundstedt, had the Battle of the Bulge, before the Battle of the Bulge, I should say. But there was 3 or 4 different divisions, I think the 99th, and there's a couple other ones that were there, but this one, the 106th, like I said, was almost a brand new division. It was as far as coming over in that area. And we had been told that they had practically wiped them out. We were told later on that from December, January, February, March, there was 80,000 casualties in that area.
In that one area.
80,000 casualties in the Battle of the Bulge. Our unit alone, the 517th, had 85% casualties altogether after.
Your unit did?
Yes, we had 85% casualties.
This is around the Battle of the Bulge?
No, this is from our combat time.
Oh,
Our
okay.
combat time.
Wow, pretty high percentage.
85%. Yeah.
Now, which group was it again that the Germans massacred along the road? Was that the 106?
Well, they're parts of other units that
Okay.
they captured.
Oh, okay.
And they put them all in this area, Malmedy, and then machine gunned them.
They
It was
didn't want
called, I don't know if you heard of the Malmedy massacre, but that was something, and that's where we wound up back in there.
to... How many men lost their lives?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, now, were you going to the Battle of the Bulge, or was that hadn't started yet when you were on that?
Well, we were in, some of us in Reims and some of us in Soissons, France. And like I say, we were going to spend Christmas in Paris. And that's when, it was December the 17th, when we got the word of von Rundstedt and his push. He had planned on, apparently the Germans had planned on capturing our supply dumps, our uniform, our equipment, and this way then going back across France and taking back France. And then I suppose hopefully they'd take England. And you wouldn't be sitting here today, neither would I. If you were, you'd be speaking a different language.
If they took England, you mean? Oh, sure.
I don't know, but just from what if you wondered why, we wondered why afterwards, why the Germans and the Russians, if they would have been allies,
Yep.
and if they would have taken England, where would we have gone? That was our base.
If the Russian and Germans were allies, you mean? That wasn't going to happen.
Russia did us a lot of good by
Yep.
fighting them also. At least this is what, the way it turned out, that the Germans really got whopped in Russia is what we were trying to do to them. But if they wouldn't have done that, we always felt that things would be different today.
Yeah, probably.
But anyway, when I think in January something of 45, there was a bunch of us that who had been living out in the worst winter in Belgium. And at Christmas, when we were there, we saw a woman coming down the road with a baby buggy, pushing a baby buggy. Everything she had was in that baby buggy. She had just witnessed her whole family being slaughtered. We found out later when they took me in an ambulance. This woman was in the ambulance strapped down. They were taking her out too, but they took us by ambulance. I froze my feet and my hands. My boots are frozen to my feet, and of course my hands. They took us to Liège, Belgium, to the hospital. And I don't know if you remember reading or hearing about the German buzz bombs.
Yes.
Okay, they would fire, and one of them, I was in the hospital in Liège, Belgium, and one of them hit one of the wings of the hospital. They would load them up with fuel and just fire them. I don't think they really knew where they were, as far as saying they're going to drop in a certain area. And most of them were going towards England, but so then after Liège, Belgium, then they took me to Paris, France. And I got to see Paris out the rear window of an ambulance window. That was my time in Paris. Then went from Paris to Normandy. And it was kind of an odd thing, but I was laying in the bed in Normandy, and Lieutenant Starkey, which was our platoon leader all this time, came in and sat on the edge of my bed. And I noticed he was sitting on the edge of the bed, and I said, "Don't tell me." Yes, he said, "One of the things we learned is when you run and fall, you fall flat. You don't have your feet and butt come up in the air." And his apparently did, and he got shot. So he wasn't sitting on the edge of the bed. But anyway, we flew us over to Bristol, England, and I was in the hospital there and took therapy. And I was there for a couple months.
And was the war still going on then, or was it over?
Oh yes, yeah. This is January, February, but it was real sad because our unit, where we were hospitalized, bedridden, so to speak, and then they eventually got us to get up. But right near us was a unit where they call it that post-traumatic syndrome.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
For this unit, there was a building right behind us, and some of these guys would walk in. And you think, oh man, they didn't know where they were walking or where they were. I think they called it in those days shell shock.
Shell shock was what it's called, yeah.
The last time we saw our first sergeant, he was running down the road tearing his clothes off.
Doing what?
And the last time I saw my first sergeant he was running down the road tearing off his clothes. But, see, our average age in the 517th our average age was 18 and a half.
Wow. Okay, once you left the hospital in England, then where did you go?
Yeah, then they took us on a hospital ship, and this is another oddity. we were ambulatory patients up on above deck, and the below deck were the basket cases. And as we were loading getting into the ship in Southampton, England, some new Air Force people were just coming in, and they were yelling at us, "Where are you going? The war's not over with yet." Guys laying in pieces down below, and here we are. We're ambulatory, of course. I think they're lucky we couldn't get off that boat. And anyway, we went from there to Camp Shanks General Hospital in New York. And we got to play cards with the Yonkers telephone girls. They bring out cards and stuff. We were there, and there was 4 of us that got to know each other quite well. I'll show you a picture of them. Mm-hmm. And he said, we had a choice of going to Fitzsimmons General in Denver or Brooke Army Hospital in San Antonio. And the 4 of us said, let's go to San Antonio. So we wound up from Camp Shanks. That took us by train. And that, I think it was on, when we were on the hospital train, is when things were pretty well wound up in Europe.
So you were stateside when the war came to an end?
Stateside, yeah. And what they called it the Zone of Interior, which is stateside. And we wound up at Brooke Army Hospital, and I was laying there in bed. I'll never forget laying in bed. This nurse comes running up to me. "You're Thomas Hill?" "Yes." Oh, her brother's name was Thomas Hill. She thought that the brother was laying there instead of me. Same night, same name. But I got there, I think it was the end of March, April, when we at Brooke Army Hospital, and we had to do different activities and things like that. And we had a choice of what to do. And we could have stayed in or else been discharged. We wanted to get home. I wanted to get home to Duluth and stuff. So, but I had an opportunity to have charge of a barracks in the convalescent hospital at that time. But like a fool, I had 3 years in by then. I could have stayed in and retired as a young guy, and But anyway,
But you got out and you went back to
on
Duluth?
July 20th, 1945. Yeah. It went, and
Where were you then when the war was officially over in Europe?
in Duluth. I was in Duluth. I was going to go to college in 45, summer 45.
There wasn't any chance for you being brought back in to go into Japan?
No. I have a discharge that said they take women and children first. That was the type 4A or whatever it was, for something or other. I could show you that.
So you went all through, most of your combat time was in Italy?
Italy, France, and Belgium, and then you only went to Germany too.
Did you ever come across any of the concentration camps when you're tricked through the...
Not as far, no. There weren't any at that time that I knew of. Our unit didn't have any, but I would imagine the 517th eventually, I know they did, eventually when they went into Germany they ran across to these things from some of the fellows that I've talked to since then. We have airborne reunions, our 517th.
Right.
We used to have them every other year, but now we have them every year because there's getting to be so few of us left. But anyway, there's been other things connected with all that.
What kind of, besides the M1 and the Thompson machine gun, did you have?
That air-cooled 30 caliber machine gun.
Air-cooled, okay.
Air-cooled 30 caliber gun. We had to carry it ourselves. See, we couldn't. Those water-cooled, they're too heavy to. But no, I could walk down the road with carrying a 33-pound machine gun receiver on my shoulder and not touch it.
And how about the ammunition for the Thompson? That's 45. That had to be pretty heavy.
Oh, that's a pretty heavy, and it's almost worse, rather than carrying a receiver, to carry 2 boxes of 30 caliber machine gun ammo. I think they're 20 or 30 pounds apiece, and you carry those for any length of time to get long arms.
Well, how many rounds did you use the round clip or the banana clip on your Thompson? Which one did you use?
The clip.
The clips?
Yeah, we didn't get that latest. One thing though, when you mentioned that, when we talked about the German 88s, how effective those were. In Belgium, we had a new, it was called a 90 millimeter. And the Germans were coming across asking to see our automatic artillery. Because the 90s would fire almost like rapid fire.
Well, what do you mean they were coming across?
They equaled and bettered the German 88s. Finally, we got the 90s. And there was a long barrel.
So you're saying the Germans came across the line just to see
well,
them?
no, the captured Germans would want to see our automatic artillery. Because it was actually better than fighting guns. We had a unit, we had a gun better. We had the 105s, the 155s, and all those heavy things. But this 90, they wanted to see what that gun was. So
did they actually show it to them? Or they said no?
But they just wanted to see it.
Yeah.
But no, we did. But that was one of the things that helped them in. And then I think it was around New Year's Day, around when the weather broke. The Air Force could not fly to start with because it was all snowed in and fogged in. But when the weather broke, they claimed, and we saw when they claimed, 5,500 bombers came over our head heading into Germany.
At one time?
Well, they'd drop their bombs, go back to Germany, get more, back to England, reload and go back. And they said there was 5,500 of them that went over in a short period of time.
Back and forth, sorties.
Back and forth.
Sure.
And that's what really turned the events were.
Because of the Air Force, the Army Air Corps got in there and did their job.
When the weather broke, because prior to that time, they couldn't fly because it was the winter.
Well, where were you when the Normandy invasion started?
Italy.
Were you in Italy already?
Still, when the Normandy, they put, at that time, well, the 82nd, we were going to get into the 82nd eventually, but that was in June, June 4th?
Yeah, June 6th, yeah.
And they drew part of the units that we were fighting with in Italy, they drew them out to England, and then they went in with the 82nd, the 101st, and then there were some other airborne units. And the British, we had British fighting with us also, and Australians and things like that. Yeah.
Wow. I guess now looking back on it, you can call it an adventure. At the time, it was not. Damn scary.
The what?
I think you could call it, looking back at it, you could call it an adventure, but not at the time. Damn scary.
Not at the time.
No.
I wouldn't even call it an adventure now.
Okay.
There's a better word than that. Which I won't repeat.
Now,
I get people, I have a captain there, it says 82nd Airborne, AA, All-American. And I've had people here in Bemidji come up to me and say, thank you for your service.
a lot of people, well, now that everybody is getting the hats, the World War II hats is happening a lot. I've talked to 55, 56 people on tape, and we're going to be airing this on the local cable channel. I'll let you know what night. And it'll run 4 or 5, 15 times. It won't just be just once. Continuously, we'll put it on the website. So people here, and I'll give you that information later. Anything else we should be talking about? Pete, do you have any questions? Well, we'll do that too a little later. We'll explain that and go into that. Tom, thank you for taking the Sunday afternoon to talk to me. It's important that young people know about this.
My son is a teacher. He teaches English and literature. He's down in Texas. He went all the way through school here.
Oh.
But a couple of times, my wife and I would go to his class and talk about where I worked in the Bureau of Indian Affairs and with World War II and that. And my wife was she was a woodcarver teacher. She taught woodcarving. and we go to a school, talk these different things, because like my son said there, you don't see that in the history books. Was it Tom Brokaw, they had the what, greatest generation or something like that, but it's not taught in school.
Anymore. It was at one time, I remember seeing it as a kid in history books, but maybe not now. I don't know if that's good or bad. Because what do they say? Sometimes history can repeat itself?
Well, World War I was supposed to have
Yeah.
everything, but it was real odd when we jumped. We had a reserve, of course, and we jumped at about 450 feet, which is
They want to get you on the ground fast.
fast. And when the group went to Grenada, they went into I think it was the 87.
Yeah.
They asked, "Where's our reserves?" Well, you don't need them. They jumped with all the reserve because it wouldn't do you any good. They're dropping 450 feet. By the time the chute's open, you got settled.
Too late.
It could have been on too late, yeah.
Did you ever have to use your reserve chute?
I never did. No, fortunately, I never did. I turned in a chute at Benning, though. That they said that you don't have to turn that in. You just did the 100 jump in that chute. So that was nice to know that after I did it. We saw one guy. This name was Fiola from Colorado. That after the jump, we were jumping, and we saw him. They yelled at him, "Pull your reserve," and he did. So it was all right. But I only know one person that on a night jump, practice jump, their chute didn't open. And
It wasn't time to hit the reserve, too low. Well, they didn't want you floating up there being a target. They
but
want you
Todd, now, a couple of years ago, my wife and we were at a reunion in Columbus, Georgia. So we went out to Fort Benning at a graduating class. And they were doing, what, 140s or something, that they were jumping. We had 17 in our plane, and these new planes, they drop over 100. And we watched this graduation class, and they had to get their shoes and walk up to where we were sitting. And this one person come walking up, and I noticed the blonde hair. And I said, I gotta shake your hand. You were the first girl paratrooper I've met. And I said, where are you going? She says, I'm going to the 82nd Airborne. That was the first female.
Wow.
There's someone at the door, it's a refrigerator.
Oh.
But anyway, I got to pin the wings on a young guy from the state of Washington. That's when you really feel old.
Yeah, but he must have felt privileged up to have somebody from 82nd from.
What?
He must have felt privileged to have somebody from 82nd pin his wings on.
Well, probably, but I don't know. But anyway, we've had reunions at different places around, but like I said, they're trying to do it every year now, but there's...
How many people show up for the reunion?
There used to be several hundred of us.
Oh, wow.
But now I haven't been the last couple myself.
Okay.
No,
Harder and harder to get out.
But General Site's still there. Our company was the favorite company of his, D Company. They had what they call an ABC test, Airborne Command Test, Physical Endurance Test. The average is generally a little over 50%, and our D Company was 97.8%. But they do this physical endurance, things like that. But we found out, because I'm colorblind, I was made a scout. I was first scout. And then I had the first scout, the second scout, and then if our unit was ever what they call a point, then they were probably 1,000 or so, or a couple of yards, 1,000 behind myself and my second scout. And but we were at the point, and I know once in Italy, walking out, I was out in the front, and this Italian come running down and yelling, Tedeschi, Tedeschi. What's that? It means the German, the enemies. And so I could see up ahead what the deal was, so I motioned back and we brought up a sniper. And I watched the sniper in action. There's an article in, I think, Time magazine.
Which one?
Time magazine, that this.
Oh yes, I did see it.
He was credited for 160
Shots.
shots. But anyway, I watched this sniper. They use old 3 Springfields with a 7.5 power scope. And of course, watched him pick off some Germans going across a bridge up ahead.
How come they didn't fire back your direction
They
then?
didn't know. They didn't know we were there yet. But, like I say, the unit was still back. But I just motioned for this, the second scout, and got to work to bring a sniper up to where I was. The unit stayed back.
Now, why did, because you were colorblind, why did they put you then?
You can't camouflage yourself against me.
Okay,
The deer hunting and stuff, I can spot a deer. Because colors don't mean that much.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it kept me out of the Navy, so it made me this.
So you could see things that the other guys couldn't see because you were colorblind. So if the Germans had camouflage on, you'd still see them.
You can't camouflage yourself against me.
Okay.
The colors don't mean, they don't do what they're supposed to.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never knew that.
No, yeah.
I'm sure that still applies to today too then.
I wasn't that good of a shot. It had to be a expert plus, but a marksman, yes, a sharpshooter, but not a sniper. But to watch it, it was like the guy in Time magazine.
Yeah. Do you ever have any other close calls of being captured or something?
Oh, there's a couple times I knew where, just by the grace of God, that I wasn't hit. We were at a bank, walking along the road and stopped in a little bank there. And just as I stood, I heard this plink, and it hit the bank, the dirt right behind me where it got me. And then another time, I know it
Was the sniper did that?
I was right around the corner of a building, and just as I moved, it hit the building. Would have hit me right there.
Both of them were snipers then?
I never saw him.
Never saw them. You didn't know where it came from, so you just got out of there.
Just luckily I moved at the split second, but apparently but I don't know
Yeah.
if he pulled the trigger when I moved or what, but anyway, it was just a split second. And
Wow.
just never, I wonder so many times, Dave, why I'm still here.
Yeah.
It,
You're in the right place at the right time. Just
yeah.
coincidence.
Just by the grace of God,
Yeah, yeah.
thank God that it's the way things worked, and it.
Tom, thank you for taking the time today to talk to me. It's very much appreciated.
Okay, some of there's camaraderie when you say adventures,
Yeah.
and they're talking. Are we still?
Sure.
Well, wait.
You can. Well, listen, we'll wind that up. We're going to look at a few pictures and things. I'm taking a picture of your airborne patch and your jump wings. Tell me about the combat infantry badge. What's the wreath mean?
The wreath is for combat. A infantryman's badge is just a straight rifle, but the combat infantryman's badge has a wreath around the rifle.
The Purple Heart came from your leg wound, the 2 wounds?
I was 2 wounded twice, yes.
Was that issued in the field or later?
Later, yeah.
You have 2 of them?
I had 2 Purple Hearts, yes. That's the Bronze Star Medal, yes.
The Bronze Star was issued for which?
Says meritorious achievement against the enemy in the
Okay.
Rome-Arno campaign in Italy. Yeah.
The one below the Bronze Star with the green ribbon.
That's the European theater. And on that medal is a bronze arrowhead for participating in an invasion. And then there were 4 bronze campaign stars for the number of campaigns that we were in Italy, France, and Belgium.
Okay,
And then the one in the middle takes the longest. That's the good conduct medal. And the other one is the victory medal. The one on the right below the Purple
Got
Heart
it.
is the victory medal. Yes.
You were telling me that you went to a reunion in California. What was that about?
It was just a regular one of our 517th reunions. Yeah.
And this was a special place?
It was this fellow that was a medic in our unit had some restaurants and
So the medic owned the restaurant. He survived the war and he was of Chinese descent?
I imagine he was
Okay.
Asian descent.
Okay, Asian, okay.
And he invited us to come to his restaurant for the reunion, which we did, and there were several hundred of us that participated in his restaurant. No charge.
He picked up the whole bill.
As far as I know, he picked up the whole thing. We didn't contribute it. I didn't. No one else did. I know. So as far as I know, he picked up the whole tab.
And he was your medic in Italy.
He was our medic in the Italy, France, Belgium, whatever.
That's pretty special.
Yeah. As far as I know, he was still alive because this was a few years ago. As far as I know, he's still alive.
Wow.
Both he and his wife.
Remember his name? You call him
That's all.
Chop Chop or something.
Yeah. I could look it up, but I don't remember.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
Tell me about this picture. What is it?
Oh, that's in the middle of it, lady. That's Bernadine Rice. She was in charge of the USO in San Antonio. And,
Where are you on here?
and the one starting on this way, his name was Humbert Ignatius Donati Jr. We met in the hospital. And then the one next to me, the thin guy there,
Anyway, which one is you? Is that you here?
yes, yeah, that's me. That's
Next to the woman.
yeah.
Should have known.
Yeah. And then the other fellow, he's from Toledo, Ohio, and then the other one's from St. Cloud, Minnesota, but the four of us got to know each other in the hospital. So we went into San Antonio at the USO from Brook Army Hospital.